Hello, friends. Welcome, and let's get into a fun new amount of content that I want to start releasing. This is a new thing that I'm going to be calling State of the Game. It's going to be a once a month release at the beginning of each month that is going to sort of take the previous month in review, talk about the things that were added, talk about power creep, talk about the meta, all of these things, just to give you an idea of what's going on in the game. And also, it will talk about the upcoming month as well, things that you should be preparing for, so on and so forth. So, hopefully, this is going to be helpful content for people who just kind of want a clue what's going on and not be surprised by events and so on and so forth that may be coming up. This should clue you in on everything going on. I also want to do this for myself too because I think it will be fun to have an archive of how the game has progressed monthly over the years. So, we'll start here and we'll kind of see how long this keeps going. All right, so first things first, just to give you an idea, like I said, I will be talking about a power creep tracker. I'm going to do this each month, and we'll get into that in a moment. But then also other things to look forward to in this particular video, we are going to do a review of how Hero League went, as well as talk about the Gem Summon Challenge. Then we'll go into the quality of life changes in the game thus far, followed by the meta that we're dealing with in Raids and War. And last but not least, we will end up with the July calendar, and we'll go through week by week at what's going to be coming up, what you should be prepared for, etc. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and we transition our way into the power creep. Okay, so for those of us who are unfamiliar with what power creep is, it's basically, it talks about the progressing increase in the power of each of the new characters that are released compared to where we were previously. This helps us figure out how quickly some of our older heroes will possibly fall off, the effective usefulness for raids and wars, etc. In this particular case, I'm looking at what we've done year to date so far. Normally, I will be doing this month by month, but because, of course, this is the first one, I decided I'd go ahead and track all the way back to the beginning of the year. In each of these months, I have it broken down how much CP was increased from a character released at the beginning of January to the end of January. In this case, it was 18 CP difference between characters released at the beginning of January and the end of January 2025, 14 CP difference between the beginning of February and end of February, March, we saw a nice dip down to only 6 CP difference. In April, 7 CP. Both of those months were primo, and we'll get into why. Then May, it was 10 CP, and then surprisingly for June, we shot all the way up to a 37 CP difference. So, as you can see to the right there, I did say that creates a year-to-date increase of 92 CP. All right, so why does this matter? Well, this is incredibly important because in this game, CP or character power or whatever you want to refer to that as is a required stat or combination of stats that's going to show the effectiveness of your characters moving forward. It's very stat related. So, in other words, your health, your attack, your defense, all of those things are going to go together to create your CP. With the way that this game has been progressing over the last 2 years ish, the CP has been on an incredibly fast paced rise. And this has led to quite a few older heroes falling off the usefulness on your roster. And I do understand, and let's take a moment to really talk about this. I do understand that this is a mobile game with a company that is trying to make money. That is understandable and part of the process. We can't have a game like this without a company trying to make money on the other end. So, I do think that CP progression is a requirement. It's a way to ensure on their end that people continue to spend so that they continue to make money and continue to make content for us to play. So there is a balance here. You like for the people complaining, oh, they just need to stop the power creep and release characters all at the same CPE and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, yes, I get it, right? I do understand that that would be nice, and in a perfect world, that would make sense. But I don't think that's a sustainable model for them as a company. So we do have to accept that power creep will go up. That being said, I would say a reasonable power creep, the ideal place for us to be, would be somewhere between 10 to 15 CP gained in a month. Closer to 10 would be ideal, up to 15 if you had a lot of characters released that month or something like that. But at the end of the year, if it was only 10 CP, you're looking at 120 CP difference over the course of an entire year. That's a manageable level. As you can see, if we're going off of this model of 10 to 15, we didn't do too bad for the majority of the months this year. January right there is a little high, 18 CPs over the top of that cap, so I would say that's a month that's not ideal. February dropped it to 14. 14 can fall in the okay range, but still a little more than I'd like to see. March and April were amazing. They really tried to slow down the power creep in those months, and I give them a lot of credit for trying this. But as we can see, I think they maybe changed their mind because May we were at 10, which is perfect. I'm fine with 10. But then June, I don't know. That's where I think they made some decisions that like, hey, fiscally this isn't maybe working for us the way we wanted to because they all of a sudden did some changes and they double buffed families like Dunes and Untold One, and all of a sudden CPs started going out of control. So they had to increase the new releases to make them viable to match some of these double buffed families. Why they got double buffed is beyond me. But there were two separate updates where they buffed Dunes and Untold One, and then we're like, hey, a month later, they're like, we're gonna go ahead and buff Dunes and Untold One again. And that's still a little baffling to me because now we have characters like Costume Day at 1630, which is way higher than our current releases still. Brand new characters coming right off the development board are still drastically behind some of these, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but regardless, that's where we're at. So in the future, when I'm doing these, you're going to see that I continue to track these. If we want our characters to last for a significant amount of time, which honestly I do, it's hard enough to pull new characters, and then the time and effort and match you put into leveling them, I want them to last long enough that makes it worth it. So we really want to see the CP range in 10 to 15, and moving forward, we'll track how it goes for the rest of the year, but I'm afraid we're going to start seeing some more offenders like this 37 CP we saw in the last month. So we'll keep you updated. Just understand right now we're at a year-to-date of 92 CP, and to be fair, this is still significantly better than we were at last year and the year before where we saw drastic gains. I think there was one year where I was looking at it and it gained like 300 CP in a year. Right now we're at the halfway point at 92 CP, so we're still not as bad as we were in the past, but I still think it can creep down a little bit as well. All right, so with that said, we've covered our CP tracker for the month. Let's go ahead and prepare to transition to our next topic, which will be Hero League. Hero League came back in June of 2025. It's been a while since we had Hero League, and a few people were very excited about it. Some were like, we don't really need that. We got enough other stuff going on, etc. But I do enjoy the idea of having more content to play. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a question of how did the content go? Was it enjoyable? Was it worth the time that you applied to it, etc., etc.? So let's get into what we thought of Hero League. First things first, I did find it enjoyable that there was an option other than traditional raiding and tournaments to go ahead and complete my raid chest. I do appreciate having options. I did like the idea of competing. I will say this, though. It took regular raid flags to do these challenges, or to compete, I suppose you can say, in this Hero League. However, you didn't have as much control over your hits as you do in like a regular raid. So I found myself using ideal teams to get wins in Hero League rather than change around my characters to complete my daily raid quests. And this started creating a conflict with raid flags, where I was having to use significantly more raid flasks to meet the daily requirements of the raids and keep up with the Hero League participation, which, over the course of 4 weeks, ended up being more flags each progressive week. At the end of it, they wanted you to do 10 hits in Hero League a day to stay competitive and keep your rank. And I think that was asking a little bit too much. 10 hits in one day, plus, like I said, it didn't necessarily cover your raid questing that you needed to do for Valor and Giants. It got a little complicated there. I didn't love having to commit that much time and effort to making sure that I stayed competitive in this league. I think they'll maybe, if they took some advice from all of this, it would be to tone that down a bit. Going all the way up to 10 a day was just completely unnecessary. Like we don't need to do that. The next thing that I have to say about Hero League is that the ranking system seemed to be a little bit confusing. I saw this within my own alliance with different alliance members talking about their experiences in Hero League. Some of our lower members within the alliance that are reasonable players, just happen to be lower level, we're talking about the extreme differences in CP of their opponents compared to where they were at. So, like, for example, they maybe had a team that was 7,500, right? But they were being matched against teams that were at 3K. And it was kind of a joke. Like, it was a guaranteed win. And because it was a guaranteed win, they maximized all the potential points earned, right? Speed bonus, etc., etc. All of that was maximized on pretty much every fight for the first week or two of their league. This allowed an exponential rise in these players to be way above some of our alliance members who are much higher level and in a more competitive matching bracket, I suppose, where they had to fight so much harder to earn points that their overall rankings were way less. We have a fairly competitive member who is like a level 124, I think, um, and she was struggling to stay in the ranking system towards the end of league. Like she didn't get ranked number; she was just trying to stay in the top 25% so she didn't get kicked out. Whereas we had players that were like level 52 that were near top 1,000 in the entire league. And it's not because they have a better roster or anything like that. It's just because of how this ranking system went. I don't think that was particularly fair because I feel like there was a lot of effort put in by some of these higher level players just to watch themselves get beat out by players that just got unfair matchups where they were able to rake in points and just cruise through league in comparison. So I understand it's in beta. I also understand they have some work to do with that, but that did not go particularly well and soured a couple people towards the idea of League and continuing forward with that. All right, finally, for League, let's talk about the other unfortunate side effect. The reward system. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It was pretty awful. Um, this was a month-long event, literally a month-long event, and they didn't offer very much rank and or sorry, they didn't offer very much loot unless you were in a ranking of like 10k or less, right? And even then, it wasn't particularly amazing loot that was even offered. It wasn't even like a full pull or something like that. It was like 40 coins of a couple different types, etc., etc. All right, look, it's a month-long event, guys. You need to give loot out like it was a month-long event. Like, why are we playing around here? You can give out at least one pull of each of these portals for a month-long event. Honestly, the sheer amount of time and effort of doing like 10 hits a day for the final week, like after seeing the loot, have really personally decided that if League came back around, I don't know if it's worth doing that level of commitment again unless they significantly increase the payout of what is given. So that's my personal thought. Although it was fun to get additional content, I don't think the whole execution of it went very well, and I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of demand for another Hero League anytime soon unless they drastically change how it all went. Okay, so that covers Hero League. Next up on our list is going to be the Gem Summon Challenge. So June did bring us back another Gem Summon Challenge. This time around, they decided to get a little sneaky on us and change it. So we all got used to the concept of that 10 gem pull previous to this, and I think it was very well received by a lot of people. Granted, the guaranteed 5-star that came in the 10 gem pull was very much a hit or miss on whether you were going to get something exciting. So this time around, I will fully admit that they created a much better list of heroes. However, they decided to make it 30 gem pulls instead. There's probably quite a few different reasons for this, but let's be honest. I think the reality is they just didn't see as much direct money coming in from the 10 gem summon challenge that they had hoped for. Mostly because I think a 10 pull, a lot of people probably have the majority of the gems saved up to do a random 10 pull, get a shot at a character, and not have to buy too much in the way of gems. So if they were looking to make more money, they needed to make us dig deeper into our wallets to be able to pull this off. In order to make that enticing, they did have to create a better list of heroes to go after, and they definitely did. This list of owls and fawns are some very interesting characters, and I would say the majority of them are all worth having. Like, I would say probably you could use all 10 of them. I'm not sure any of them were awful and not usable. Now, there were definitely wins and losses in this, and the fact that the fawns were much stronger than the owls overall. But for the most part, they all had some unique utility that made them at least worth having and considering leveling for your roster. I did like the idea of getting a guaranteed 5-star. I think that this is the type of event that this game does need. Like, we do need something like this because pull rates can be terribly low. right? And for some people, that's not a big deal. I have a wide range of players in my alliance. Some people like to spend quite a bit, others are completely free to play. The free to play players have an incredibly hard time actually getting new 5 stars. So, an event like this, if they know it's coming, they have a potential of saving up their gems and doing their polls specifically when a challenge like this comes up to ensure that if they do spend the gems as a free to play player for 30 polls, they will at least walk away with something new at the end of it. I do think that's a cool concept. That being said, for completely free to play players, it is still hard to get to enough gems because it was, at bare minimum, 7,800 gems to play at this particular event. Now, I didn't personally participate, not because I didn't think it would be worth it, but mostly because right now I have quite a few things to level already, so I didn't feel the need to go chasing after any of these characters currently. That said, I did have a little bit of envy in not being able to participate in the fun and seeing what it is I would have gotten from this, and maybe in the future I will participate just because I don't want that feeling of missing out. But I also figured if I save up next month, maybe they will do another 30 gem pull and there will be something more interesting for me than the owls and the fawns. I don't know. We'll have to see where they take this gem challenge moving forward. But I do like the idea that they are putting a guaranteed 5 star pull into this game. It does need it, that is for sure. Okay, so I think that's a good wrap up over the Gem Summon Challenge and how that all worked out. And the next thing up on our list today is going to be focusing on quality of life changings. All right, so because we haven't had any of the state of the game done for the previous months of this year, there are quite a few things that we're going to get into for quality of life changes here. Moving forward, there probably won't be quite so many in 1 month, and I do expect my future videos for these to be shorter, but there's just a lot to cover. Again, mostly because we haven't been doing this on a monthly basis yet. So let's get into it. Quality of life changes that we've seen in 2025 so far that have been what I consider to be beneficial to the enjoyment of this game. So starting off with that, we have our visiting costumer, which they have now committed to giving to players every 3 months, rotating with Hero Coach as well as Soul Exchange. I do think this is a very cool idea. I have been saying for an incredibly long time within this game, there needs to be a better way for people to get costumes for the characters that they already have. Because the pull rates are very, very tough in this game. And if you previously pulled this character, the only way you were going to get a costume was to get lucky enough to pull that character again. Otherwise, you just had to watch the improved costume version exist and you not have any access to it. And I think that is just awful. There really needed to be a way to get to that costume for your character so you can make them viable once more. And the visiting costumer does do this, although it does require the costumes to be a year and a half old. That I understand why they put a limitation on it. They certainly don't want you getting the shiny new costumes for basically 300 gems. And like I do understand once again the economics of this, but I hope that they consider in the future reducing it from 1.5 years down to maybe just 1 year old. Uh, Give us access to this stuff a little bit faster. It's not really going to hurt anything because at most we're able to do this 4 times a year. And in reality, you do want people continuing to progress. So I highly recommend that they consider reducing that requirement of 1.5 years. But again, this is just my personal opinion, and they certainly are not required to follow that. All right, next up, very similar to our visiting customer, we have our hero coach. Another new concept that they added, allowing us to take a 2-year-old character and level them all the way, if we want to, from 1 to 90 at the cost of 1,000 gems. Now, you can also level up characters that you've previously been working on leveling, and the cost for gems is going to go down significantly the higher the level the character is. For example, going 80 to 90, I think, is somewhere around 37 gems. Going like 85 to 90, I think, is a mere 18 gems. So just a cool concept for sure. Once again, though, requiring this to be a 2-year-old character might be a little bit harsh. I think much like the visiting costumer, we could probably take that 2 years old and drop it to at least 1.5 years old, possibly even down to 1 year old for Hero Coach. I don't know if they will listen to the suggestion, but I do want them to make more viable characters available for these particular things. Right now, for Hero Coach, the majority of people are just hero coaching something they have a costume for, right? Because it's much more viable and able to then hold up to our current levels. So if no one is really hero coaching a 2-year-old hero because they just aren't viable, then maybe that 2-year-old requirement is a detriment because you're not really getting people to do 2-year-old characters. You're getting them to do older characters that they have a costume for to make them relevant and new. So it's kind of a catch-22, but I do want them to consider that. So hopefully, once again, they don't have to listen to me, or who knows if they even do listen to videos like this. But if they are out there, if they do ever hear something like this, just understand where your market is for this. Like a 2-year-old character is probably not anyone's choice. So if you're not effectively reaching anyone's interest level there, maybe you need to adjust the bar so that you actually get people to invest in characters without costumes as well. Just a thought. Okay, next up, we have the 15 and 16 star Titans that were introduced. For the longest time, Titans had started to become problems for higher end alliances where there had to be damage caps put on, or else these Titans were dying so quickly, like within hours of coming up. And it caused a lot of drama within alliances because making these caps was not easy for some players. Like they'd have runaway cascades, etc. It caused problems because Titans would die early. Some people wouldn't get to hit at all, and honestly, it was just a giant headache. It really was. So them introducing stronger Titans was a bit of a godsend. However, they certainly did release stronger Titans. When they first came out, the difference between 14 and 15 star was so drastic that it was hard for alliances to successfully break into killing the 15-star Titans. So I know as an alliance, we were able to do so as soon as they came out. We were able to get them down. But the truth is, they introduced harder Titans, which required way more materials, but they left it with the exact same loot table at first as 14-star Titans. So here's where that's not exactly that cool, because yes, it's nice that we have a new challenging thing, but again, risk versus reward didn't match up. Here you are spending way more materials, way more effort, frustration, and all of that to get this 15-star kill, and you got the exact same loot that you got for barely putting any effort into killing 14 stars. So a lot of alliances made the decision to say, hey, you know what, 15 stars aren't even worth it. Let's just let them escape, go back to 14 stars and farm those for loot. Um, I didn't want to do that in my alliance, but ultimately it was decided it was the better choice overall for people. So we did switch down to 14 stars for a little bit. However, they then decided, as you can see, the next thing up on the list, to introduce Titan Bounty Rewards. Okay, so the Titan Bounty Rewards was released around the same time that they released the 16-star Titans. This made things a little bit more interesting because for 15 and 16-star Titans, they were adding an additional loot slot which had potential for better loot than a standard Titan loot slot under the Titan Bounty reward system. This was interesting. It definitely made us excited to kill the first couple Titans. I do think, however, that even this new Titan Bounty requires a little bit of tweaking because it pretty much always gives you battle items or Titan parts, which we all have lots of battle items and Titan parts. It's not that exciting. I would have preferred that they found something a little bit more viable to give out at the bottom end of the Titan Bounty rewards. Maybe even like one Master Emblem at least guaranteed at the bottom of it, right? If you need 50 Master Emblems just to level one character, giving one a day at random for killing titans of this level does not seem like overkill. And at least then I'd feel like I'm gaining something of value as opposed to 3 more Titan spines to add to my 732 I have, or something like that. Like the Titan parts are just not exciting when I see those battle items again. Look, I invested way more battle items into fighting these things than they're ever giving back as a bounty reward. So again, I don't think those should be the bottom end of the Titan bounty rewards, but I am glad that they added it because the truth is there is the potential to get cool stuff in there, and I have enjoyed that a few times. So hey, listen, still very cool. I'm glad they're adding stuff like this for us. And then last but not least, under quality of life changes, I'm going to talk about the pinning hero roster. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, this is kind of silly. Like, that's not even a huge quality of life changer for the actual gameplay. And I suppose that's true. However, I got so tired of searching through my roster to find the characters that I'm currently leveling for every color, being able to pin them at the top, it does save a lot of time and effort, and that has increased my quality of life in this game. Like it's much more convenient. I also play with other players at times where, like, they might be farming something for me while I'm working on something. Okay, so like if they are, they're like, oh man, who are you leveling so I can give some of these feeders into them, and I'd have to stop and tell them who I'm leveling. Then they'd have to search and find. Now it's all just at the top, right? It's all just at the top. They can feed them away. I don't have to answer those questions. The quality of life of the pinning heroes at the top was actually great. I'm happy that they introduced that. So that's what I have for quality of life changes so far in 2025. If you can think of something else that you think is noteworthy, you could always leave a comment on this video, and I can consider adding it to next month's State of the Game, and we'll go over those things as well. All right, so meta changes. Let's go ahead and get into that. We've seen actually a lot of movement in the meta recently. This is due to the fact that Small Giants has really decided that Mega Minions has way too much of a hold on everything in the game currently. Um, and they drastically put effort into ensuring that that will no longer be the case. We've seen this in a lot of the new families that are being released, where they all are now getting passives that help them pick on Mega Minions specifically, whether it be the Magic Tower family, which is reducing their overall HP by 75%. We also have the Fawn family, which just got an upgrade, making minions and mega minions lose 50 to 60% accuracy when attacking. The new family that was introduced with the seasonal portal over the summer, the solstice portal, those characters each had a passive that affected mega minions as well. One of them made it so they couldn't be affected by abilities from mega minions, and the other one did an additional 150% damage towards mega minions. The astral dwarves also have a passive which allows them to resist. That gives them superior resist, which also allow them to resist mega minion effects and damage, basically turning them into just health shields. There's a lot of interesting things being done to ensure that Mega Minions can no longer have a stranglehold on our meta. Now, with that being said, it makes you wonder, okay, well, hey, what is going to be next, right? What can I prepare myself for so that I can be ready for the new meta that will be coming around? And the best thing that I can give you in this particular department is to let you know that it looks like it's going to be based around mana manipulation again, whether it be either increasing your team's mana manipulation, or sorry, increasing your team's mana gain, or reducing your opponent's team's mana so that they are casting slower than you are. It's all about special manipulation in the sense that, like, you're getting your specials off faster than they're getting their specials off, allowing a significant gap in the effectiveness of one team versus the other. This is why you saw an awful lot of Fergus tanks out there. It was something that was pretty effective for a long time, but Fergus was particularly effective because he hid behind a Mega Minion, which made him hard to kill before he was able to start reducing everybody's mana. I do think that mana manipulation will continue to be a big part of the meta moving forward, but Fergus will probably not be the reigning champion of that anymore. Just understand that, like, with the way things are going with reflect effects as well as tune resists and all of the other things like that, mana manipulation has been something that's kind of avoided a lot of that. Like when you say reduce target's mana by a certain percent, those mana cuts, they don't tend to be reflected because they're not a status effect, right? It's more of a direct reduction instead. So we're avoiding all the crazy glass costumes that have been popping up all over. And it's just been a pretty effective way of handling things at current. So you're going to want to consider stocking up your roster with characters who handle mana reductions in a fairly positive way. Or you're going to want to put some characters in your team that give plus mana to your teammates to counter some of the reduction you'll be facing. Either way, you want to ensure that you don't fall drastically behind them at the speed you're casting your specials, because you will lose a fight that way. So, things to consider. Fawns are fantastic against mana reduction. So all of you that pulled in the gem challenge and end up with a brand new fawn, congratulations. They are going to help you with, it seems, the direction that the current meta is going. And I highly recommend that you also consider characters like the Beowulf family, or even switching back to Toon costumes that have a 75% chance to resist mana reductions as well. So, moving forward, if you're trying to see where the meta's at, I think that's where we're going now. So, Mega Minions out, mana manipulation in, and prepare for that. And I will keep you updated as the meta changes. Okay, so let's go into the last section of this particular state of the game video, which will be the up and coming calendar for our month of July 2025. So, to start things off, I do think it's important to understand what's coming up on the calendar. This is going to be what helps you prepare and make an ideal plan for your gem usage for the month, as well as your leveling priorities and plans for your ascension materials. Because a lot of times, if you are just caught off guard by these things, you may be spending your materials in the wrong place. Having a plan to move forward with your limited resources in a game like this is really a lot better than just waiting to see what happens and then reacting to it. So let's talk about what we get for July of 2025. So in this first week, we of course have our hero coach. We're still in the beach party. We have War of Three Kingdoms right now, which is fun with the release of the new characters. They're some of the best characters currently in the game. So getting some pulls in War of Three Kingdoms, not a bad idea. I do recommend it. Towards the end of the week, this week, around the 4th, we are going to see the Contest of Elements come back. This month, we are focusing on nature. So if you are looking for green heroes, the Contest of Elements can be a good place to do it, although the featured heroes in that portal are relatively low at 0.5%. Following that, Saturday, the 5th, we're going to get Magic Tower. Magic Tower is another very fun portal right now. The costume releases are also very interesting. Melina was a rock star. If you picked up Melina's costume, congratulations. Fantastic hero all around. All right, moving on to the following week, we have ourselves Tremors of Underwild. It's fine. We have a Dragon Quest in week 2. Shadows of the Deep. So I don't know. Listen, everyone has their preferences. Insanity characters, not necessarily for me, but there is a really cool effect to that portal where you can get quite a few additional heroes if you pull a 5-star, if you're lucky. So it is a fun portal to pull in if you like getting multiple 5-stars. It's one of the best ones to do that in. Then we're also going to have Untold Tales 2 in the second week. We are releasing the Ice Family heroes currently, so I fully expect there to be more of those coming out. So we'll see what they offer us there. Judgment of Dunes with the double buffs they gave to Dunes. The Dunes characters are great. They're just not the easiest thing to get pulls for. All right, following that, we have the next week on the 14th, we have Beowulf's Challenge coming. So that is exciting. I like the Beowulf family characters quite a bit, especially as we just talked about with this new mana reduction meta. They are some nice characters to have on your side to help protect you against mana reductions. So that's a great one. We also have a Covenant quest, which is nice. It'll let you collect a few pulls for Covenant, and Covenant always has some of the most sought-after heroes in it, so that's fantastic. Around the 16th, we're going to be looking at a costume chamber, and then we also have, on the 18th, another Contest of Elements, which will also be green. They're doing two. So the first one seems to be coming out with a new slime. The second one of the month is coming out with a super elemental costume of recent. So I fully expect it to follow that same sort of pattern. We'll see a slime come out here on the 4th, and then on the 18th, we should see our first green super elemental costume as well. All right, then down here we got, well, Mythic Titan, that's fine. Another Magic Tower, which is interesting. Goblin Village. Goblin Village, unfortunately, due to the way that they're shifting away from Mega Minions, has sort of created a little less interest, I think, in the Goblin Village polls because although it is still fun to get these characters, they don't have the same weight they used to. So I don't expect to see quite as many polls in Goblin Village currently. Ancient Underroot, another Dragon Quest. Actually, you know what? Let me just rewind a little. Goblin Village, with the downplay of these Mega Minions a bit, it might finally be time for SG to consider releasing another goblin. I know, that's craziness. Like, it's called Goblin Village. Why would we have goblins in it? That's a great question. I don't know. They seem to have given up on that idea as well, but maybe it's time. Maybe, just maybe, we'll start seeing a new set of goblins come out, and that could be fun too. All right, sorry, moving on. Back down to this. Final week. We've got ourselves the Astral Plane, so we're going to get our dwarves down here. And there we go. Boom. End of the month. This is probably one of the most important things to cover. We have our Visiting Outfitter returning on the 28th of July. So this is what you need to start thinking about. Characters that you would like to consider getting a costume for. And if you got that costume for them, would they bump up a significant order in your leveling, and if they would, it might be time for you to start saving materials towards that. One important thing to note, we are going to be seeing Toon costumes released in this outfitter for the first time. There was some debate whether they should have been in the last outfitter, but they were not. They should be. I emphasize with a strong should be in this one. There is absolutely no justifiable reason why they would not be in this one. But last time it doesn't look like they updated the availability of costumes. Hopefully they won't drop the same ball again. So we should see our Toons. I think a lot of people probably have characters they're waiting on Toon costumes for. So it should be an interesting outfitter for at least that reason. Okay, so remember, prepare, save yourself, mats for outfitter, etc. Oh, Kavala enters down here too on the 28th. So Legends of Kavala, I do want to point something out here as well, and I do think this is important too. So please pay attention to this section. If you are getting epic hero tokens right now, I urge you to not spend them in this beach party event. Yes, the heroes that they released are okay. They really are okay. I don't think they're bad heroes. However, I have seen some hints at what might be involved in the Legends of Kavala event, and I believe that their featured heroes listed in this next event are significantly better than the options currently in this one. So hold on to your epic hero tokens. Prepare for some fun summoning in the Legends of Kavala for this year. Then it looks like we have another contest of elements. This one is blue, I believe. So at the end of the month, we're going to get blue. It should be a new blue slime. I've also seen a sneak peek. I think that blue slime is going to be pretty dang awesome. So looking forward to seeing what comes out there. And then last but not least, we have Shadows of the Deep again at the very tail end of the month. So 2 Shadows of the Deep portals next month. Again, fine. We get a couple free pulls. Insanity Heroes can be interesting, especially if you pull a 5-star and get a whole bunch of the bonus ones. And to be fair, you can still snag yourself a Bernadette from that portal. And who doesn't like Bernadette? I mean, I don't like going up against her, but I certainly wouldn't mind having her in my roster. So that's just something to look forward to. I think this covers the majority of everything that we needed to discuss in this first State of the Game video. I hope this was helpful for people. I do understand it's a little bit of a longer one, but these will only be released once a month. So you have the entire month to listen to it. You can stop and come back if you need to. Also, as I get more familiar with how to make this content effective, I'm going to try to put shortcuts in the screen where you can tap and just go to a particular section and listen to the content you want to listen to rather than have to scroll or figure out where you're at through the whole video. But this is a learning process for me as well. I do hope you enjoy the content that I'm making, and if you do, you can consider just go ahead and subscribing to this channel so that all of this content will be available to you without putting much effort in, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.